Dormammu, I've come to podcast.
Hello, and welcome everyone to What the Fiction. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and with me is the rest of my family.
I'm Will, and I have my buddies here, and they loved Shang-Chi.
Oh, lovely.
Hi, I'm Robin. I'm back again.
We missed your voice.
Okay.
And I am Kyle.
Yes, and as Will said, we are actually here to talk about Shang-Chi.
Shang.
No, it's not. It's actually Shang.
No, it's Shang.
No,
Well.
it's really not. And they actually go into it in the movie, and they actually go through the pronunciation in such a clever way. Do you remember how they talked about the pronunciation of his name?
Wait, we have to do a spoiler warning.
Do we?
Do we?
What if someone watches this episode by accident and hasn't watched Shang-Chi?
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 Well, I'm sorry that person is here. You probably want to pause us and then come back after you've had 2 hours of delightful excursion times at the theater.
But it was midnight.
For
Yes,
us.
we watched it very, very late because we actually did a streaming show of What If before we went to go see it.
That I wasn't a part of.
You're going to be in the next...
All right.
Okay.
So we're going to start with Robin and get a high level. How did you feel about the movie?
It was good. I liked it. Very cool. Very epic.
Did it feel like an MCU movie for you?
Sometimes, and then other times I'm like, this feels loosely related. You know, like we aren't seeing Iron Man. We're seeing Shang-Chi.
That's a really good point. Yeah, there's only one point of interconnectivity in the movie, isn't there?
And Will, how did you feel about the movie?
I felt like it was a very good movie because it had a lot of connections to stuff that I don't get, and you guys are gonna probably talk about. When I just want to talk about the chaos levels are about a medium, they're a 5.
Okay. But you sat in the movie, you enjoyed the movie. Was there anything that you felt like was particularly difficult for you?
No, you're bringing up the subtitles.
I wasn't specifically going to bring up the subtitles, but now that we're on that topic, there were subtitles, and you, as a 9-year-old, were able to read all of them.
I wish I was just a bit higher up because
Yeah.
I couldn't see.
Because the theater we saw them in actually was an ultra viewing screen, and it stretched the whole thing. And so because of how we were seated, the subtitles were a little low for a short person in where we were in the theater.
Well, it's because there's bars, and the bars would block me, so I had to go up and down.
Yeah, probably not the experience for most people who watched the movie, but
But it was fun. It was a workout for my neck and back. And now whenever my spine touches a seat, it hurts.
Oh, you seem to keep up with the subtitles pretty well, even though it was it felt like a third of the spoken words were subtitled
Mandarin.
That's a good thing.
from Mandarin. Yes. Yeah, no, it was great. And Kyle, how did you feel about the movie?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. I laughed. I didn't come close to crying. The 3 set piece fights, I really liked 2 of them. And I found the movie to be an interesting and engaging launching point for the phase 4 of the MCU, whatever that is to be for this 4th phase. And I think the movie recognized that it wasn't answering a lot of questions and kind of commented on the fact that they're not here to answer those questions.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of questions.
Okay. Will we get into some of those questions during the course of this?
Possibly. I have read a lot of Shang-Chi comics. I am very familiar with that world and that history and everything that comes with it, and won't bore my family with my own in-depth analysis of the comic book connection to the movie, because this was very much its own thing.
Yeah. They definitely some of the things that we've discussed is his father was never the Mandarin in the comics, and he had killed his father in the comics in quite a hard way, right? Or at least this is what you've told me because I haven't read them. But there are differences from the comic.
Dad, have you read every single Marvel comic?
So I felt like it was a brilliant way to introduce the character, but also retain a lot of what I felt like they needed to do to integrate a very Chinese-centric story, which had sort of Asian American origins, rather than necessarily trying to 100% win over the Chinese audiences. They didn't go in with that, and that was always my concern, because Disney typically, if you look at what happened with Mulan, or you look at certain other properties like Star Wars, what had happened is Disney kind of goes into those markets and tries to like present them in such a way that they're trying to win over that audience. And instead they kind of went from it like trying to win over the Asian American audience and understand, and audiences in general, fans of the MCU, new people who might not have ever watched an MCU movie, and they've seen the demographics, because this is after the opening weekend, which on a side note, this movie did really, really well in the theaters, even though there's a pandemic on and it was a Labor Day weekend, which traditionally movies don't do well on. They saw a massive increase in Black and Asian viewers domestically. So it's like alternative storytelling, or people non-white perspective storytelling actually is quite good, because it opens up the storytelling lens to people who might be interested in hearing those stories, which is also really awesome. I absolutely am in love with Wenwu, who's the bad guy, whose dad, the Mandarin, his story with his wife, and that whole plot line, which felt like there was kind of two stories being told at the same time. It was Shang-Chi's story as well as Wenwu's story at the same time throughout the story. And all of the women characters, even Awkwafina, his sister and his aunt and his mom, all had like these really strong and powerful moments. And it passed the Bechdel test because women were having conversations about other things other than men, which is awesome. 10 out of 10. It's a great movie. It plugged into so many things that I loved.
So at a point in the movie, I was like, at the battleground point in the movie, I was like, hey, it's Wong. And Robin, who was sitting right next to me, was like, that's not Wong. And then like the next scene, they were like, Wong. And Robin was like, okay, that's Wong.
So you were wrong about Wong?
Yes and no.
Did you Wong to be right about Wong?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the one connection that I felt that it was to the MCU at large, right?
Yes.
Did you guys notice any other connections to the greater picture of the MCU?
Why is there only Captain Marvel and Wong, and then Bruce Banner?
There was also Bruce.
Oh, right.
That was like the after credit
after
scene,
credit
right?
moment. That's right.
Why were there only those two Avengers? I think most of the other Avengers are either dead,
Retired.
or too old to fight, or they are out doing other stuff like Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. Maybe at this moment, Multiverse of Madness is happening.
Maybe.
Could be. It also could be showing us that Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner are the two leaders of the Avengers at this point.
So it definitely was loosely tied to the larger MCU storylines, because we only really had Wong. And it introduced us to a whole new area, except for, of course, that we had got to see Trevor Slattery again, which tied us directly to Iron Man 3 and that link to the Mandarin. And also there was ties to Iron Man because of how that influenced Tony's Iron Man creation.
Did you kids notice who Wong was fighting?
I noticed him, but I don't know him.
No? Didn't recognize him?
Is he I don't know.
Was it Abomination?
They were fighting Abomination, which was the army guy that did the things with Bruce Banner's blood in The Incredible Hulk that we watched down here ever so long ago.
Was it the guy with the sword arm?
That was the big green guy that Wong fought during the battle before Shang-Chi did his battle.
Oh, yeah. Why is he so big?
Because he is.
He's kind of a match for the Hulk in many ways, right?
But he's
Except he was in one movie.
He's one bad guy in one movie.
And he seemed to be friends with Wong and kind of jovial.
Yeah, I liked
which
that.
was interesting. Yeah.
Well,
This was what they do on Friday nights.
Yeah, like instead of playing poker, they go and like fight in a cage match, and he picks him up and they go get pizza beforehand and then have a beer after.
But now on Friday nights, Wong is out singing karaoke.
Yeah, hey. So what did you like about the movie a ton, Robin? What did you walk away from it thinking about?
The next stages of the MCU, how Spider-Man No Way Home comes out on my birthday. And I'm really happy that this movie came out because it's really good and it was really enjoyable. And I was happy that there was subtitles.
Did you like how Shang-Chi's dad, Wenwu, sort of gave up being a 1,000-year-old villain for his wife from a mystical plane?
Honestly, they should have had a conversation before he went and did that.
They probably did. They just did it in a cutscene, in like a montage, right? With a narration. And I felt it was a little interesting, and I still don't know what it means, but Shang-Chi's mom, Li, is the one who is narrating the start of the movie, but she is dead. So how is she narrating the movie for us?
Because the narration doesn't matter in the MCU. It's just telling us where the story takes place. And that was also in the past. And right after that, it leads to his mom telling Shang about how his dad met her.
So was her narration at the start of the movie her telling Shang as a little kid, Shang-Chi, about how mom and dad had met?
Not you guys, but...
Yes, his parents. Interesting. Okay. That makes sense. I think that makes sense based on what we saw, but it's been a few days. And then we have Wenwu, who is on a vengeance path, right? And Shang is directly affected by that and wants to avoid the vengeance path or get himself away from that. And that causes much of the family strife because he left because his father was only wanting to have his mom back and was like suffering in the grief. The story that Wenwu is dealing with is the grief and the loss of Shang-Chi's mother. That is his driving factors throughout the movie. It could be classified as a husband trying to seek his wife in the underworld and bring her back story. So it ties quite closely with mythology. How did you feel about the character of Wenwu going and trying to find Shang-Chi's mom?
Like, man, like, you can be sad. It's just don't try to revive someone. We already know that doesn't work.
Yeah? Why do we know that? Why doesn't that work?
So many characters in the Marvel, like 2 of the characters in the Marvel movie have tried to revive someone.
It was really odd because it tied quite closely to the what if that we saw that week with Doctor Strange trying to change time to bring back Christine, his one true love in that universe.
What if Doctor Strange didn't lose his hands and he lost his legs?
Good question. That's a good what if. What would happen? He'd probably still be the Sorcerer Supreme.
If he lost his legs, he wouldn't need them to do surgery on people. So he would still have his job and he would still do things.
Fair.
Yeah.
His legs aren't as necessary as his hands are.
But what if he lost his arms and his legs? He's just a flopping
Very,
body.
very difficult. All right. Back to Shang-Chi. Robin, what did you think about Shang-Chi's anger with his father, which was a major driving force for him throughout the movie? His fear and his anger of his father.
Frankly, that guy is a bad dad most of the time.
Was he a bad dad when Shang-Chi was younger?
I mean, yeah, he didn't let his daughter train with the rest of the guys because reasons.
But I mean, when his mom was still around.
No, but after that, he was grief-stricken and kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
But being grief-stricken doesn't give you a free pass to be a jerk.
No, absolutely. But it's more understandable, right?
Still doesn't give...
Absolutely. What did you think of that relationship, Kyle?
So I think Shang-Chi in this movie is taking out his own anger and guilt at himself on his dad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that in many ways he also is feeling guilty for having not stepped forward and died with his mom, and he lets his dad be cruel and heartless to him because he feels he deserves it.
Right.
For that.
Yeah.
And then when his dad tells him to go and kill the man that killed his mother, and he does,
yeah,
I think he runs away from his own sense of guilt for the rest of the movie. And I don't think that it properly resolves that.
I don't think so either. I think that that's probably a story for another day because it was only barely touched on with the friendship with Awkwafina's character.
But then they develop and they build this big final fight, essentially with the Soul Beast and Shang-Chi's dad. And I don't feel that fight that he had with his own father had the catharsis that I think we wanted from them.
What were you hoping for?
I don't want to conjecture as to what I would have liked to have seen instead. All I got was what we have.
Yeah.
And it seems ill-fitted.
It didn't quite live up to what you were hoping to see in a cathartic moment. What I needed from Wenwu was an apology, like more of an apology.
Maybe less dying during the apology.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, like just...
And it's been a week, so I'm not remembering it as well.
Yeah, he sacrificed himself for...
Because he gave his son the rings.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that. They're called the rings.
The 10 rings, yeah.
But it's really the 10 bracelets.
Yeah.
What really confused me was that he didn't die when he took the rings off, because I thought the rings were what was giving him immortality.
He just starts aging again because he had taken them off
That was not explained, and
Yeah, that was very confusing as well. I felt he was still connected to the rings.
because he hadn't like given them up, and they changed color when they were eventually on Shang-Chi's arms, right? So that was like him officially giving them up.
He's putting them on hold.
And yeah, I'll talk about it now. The movie said, hey, you have a bunch of questions. Where did these rings come from? Who is this man who has been in control of things for 1,000 years? Why hasn't anything changed in the world? Why have we never heard of him until now? Oh, don't worry about that. Don't ask those questions.
It'll be okay. Here, eat.
Where are these rings from?
Why do they exist?
Yeah.
I'm really okay with that. It felt a lot like a Chinese drama that I like a wuxia or a zhangzhe, where it's like, and now you're dropped into the story. All you need to know is that heaven and hell exist, and you're on the mortal plane, and all of these people have magical powers. Now go. Like that's quite common in Chinese dramas. They don't give you all of the information, and the information that you need for the story is given to you throughout the show or the movie.
Yeah, but this was done via narration.
Yeah. Which
and
is
or exposition.
also quite common.
But also unnecessary.
Yeah, they didn't need to say anything.
No, once again,
Yeah.
there didn't need to be any narration. And that is another element for me, because how many people were actually shocked that the mom was genuinely dead?
I was.
I was too. And do you know why?
Yeah.
Because we had her narrating the story to us at the beginning.
That's what I was trying to say earlier on with Will, is like, isn't that confusing?
Yeah, to hear and find out that it was actually not, we're just getting a recording of the mom having told the story midway through to the son.
Yeah.
But at the same point, we're kind of given the expectation that she is other than human, right? The mom isn't human. She's not from Earth.
No, she's something else. It's another realm or another universe that she's from, which is also kind of an interesting thing.
Why does this other realm exist? Why have we never heard of it?
Yeah. And they call it the realm of the gods, which from a genre perspective would be like heaven.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What were some of the cool moments in the movie for you, Will?
What's the Mandarin's pet name?
There is no Mandarin. Let's put that very clearly into place here. There is Trevor Slattery and Wenwu. No one is actually the Mandarin because Wenwu does not accept that as a title. He's like, that's an orange. I am not a Christmas fruit.
Yes.
And Trevor Slattery is the actor.
From Liverpool.
Who definitely has a strange relationship with the movies. So what was your favorite part?
The part where whatever his name is goes up to Trevor and he's like,
Oh, Morris is the name, and the mythical creature is Hundun.
Morris the Hundun crawls up to Trevor and he's like, are you okay? And he's like, I'm not actually dead. It's acting.
Right. And then Morris like flips over and pretends to be dead too.
It also kind of looks like he wants belly rubs.
Yes.
Yes.
That's delightful. So that was your favorite part of the entire movie? Nice. What was your favorite part, Robin?
The bus fight.
I will admit, that bus fight.
Whoa, what? Did he just do that? Why does he have a laser? What?
And it does such a great job of setting us up to expect them to be at least capable because they are valets and they drive cars in the busy traffic for a living already anyway, so that when they have to take over for driving the bus, it makes sense. I feel like, okay, yeah, they could do that, right? I felt like, okay, yeah, Awkwafina can drive this bus. This is not going to be a problem.
Another thing that I wanted to say, in the trailer, they actually show Abomination beating up some other guy, but in actuality, they changed it to Wong fighting Abomination.
Interesting.
Huh. I think that it's actually him fighting Wong and we just can't tell. But the bus is also one of my favorite moments in the movie.
Yeah.
A highlight fight.
Mine too.
100%.
It was entertaining. It felt like Speed in moments, like a little bit like that. And the movement and cinematography of that fight was just so good. I also really enjoyed the other fight that was also like high risk, which was on the side of the building with the scaffolding. It was a lot of good movement with that too.
3 great fights in this movie, and the third being the dad and the mom fight.
Yes.
I don't know if that final fight
With the like with the dragon
did much
and
for
the
me.
soul stealer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have had the dragon speak.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know why the dragon didn't speak. Seemed like it probably could. Definitely communicates its needs to its people.
Yeah.
And I had assuredly thought that the dragon was going to be Fin Fang Foom.
Yeah. Which would have tied to Iron Fist.
Not just to Iron Fist, but would have tied in a large Marvel character from the past.
Right. Me, myself, I loved it when they went to the other world and the realm of the gods through the maze that will eat you.
Oh, the trees.
But like just the arrival there and like the understanding that like this place exists, and so like in some ways it was sort of saying all legends are true, right? So it's not just the Marvel multiverse; it's also saying in a way like anything that we've kind of imagined probably has a place in the multiverse or in the multi-universal lands, right? And so like getting to see Nine-Tailed Fox, getting to see the Phoenixes, getting to see the Guardian Lions and the Dragon.
That Nine-Tailed Fox looked like it was straight out of Pokemon.
No, well, like I'm used to seeing it from a genre perspective. So like that was just really entertaining to me, and I got a little giddy when I saw it.
I was like, oh my god, Vulpix. Shiny Vulpix.
That's hilarious.
And shiny Pokemon, if no one knows this, are very rare, like 1 in a million chance type of Pokemon.
Fair.
That are super rare and some people look for. And I believe Vulpix's shiny form is blue. I might be wrong on that. And if some big Pokemon fan watches this, they'll be angry at me.
I doubt it.
My favorite point in the entire movie is actually what the sister does at the end.
Oh, really? Like
Yeah.
where she takes over the 10 rings and
Yeah, because
sort of makes it her own? Yeah.
his artificial decision that she's just going to go back and tear it down when already she'd built up a criminal enterprise
know.
of high-rise skyscraper fighting matches tells me that she's already interested in leading people and making money.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will point out that in the comics, Shang-Chi's sister is a major threat and major conflict point for him because the dad uses the love of the sister and brother that they have for each other and punishes Shang-Chi by taking his sister away.
Oh, interesting.
Refuses, and just like in the movie, the dad refuses to train the daughter at all. She has to learn from other sources and in other
And
ways.
teach herself, yeah.
Slight sexism there.
Slight? I think
Yeah, I mean,
it's...
it's full-on blown sexism, right? And it's that theme of like missing feminine, missing mother that is hugely reflected in the movie, that he can't even handle the daughter because she looks like
Why is it whenever like one of the parents die in movies, they're like they see themselves as the child of their same gender, and then they see their spouse in their other child, and they're like, no, I will only teach this one.
It's a great question. That
Why?
is also a trope, I'm sure. But I also think that that's plugging into psychology of humans, right? I know how to deal with child that reminds me of me versus the boy child that might not. But like family systems are very complex, right?
They are. And one of the main themes of Shang-Chi is
Family.
Yes.
Yeah, and not found family as we've seen in other movies and shows.
It's legit family.
This is actually their family. And we get this
Black Widow be like.
There's a beautiful way they show that to us because they show us Katie's family. And what's Katie's family like?
Pretty average.
Yeah.
Yeah, like normal, like, hey, how coming over for breakfast? Make
American
sure
families.
when are you going to get married? Like that sort of question.
What's the relationship between Katie and her brother?
Good.
And normal, right? Like you and Robin.
Yeah, we don't talk.
But he was so impressed that his sister got to go and drive cars all day. He thought that was a good thing, and he defended her to his mom and dad, right? Not only were mom and dad present at the breakfast table, but so too was grandma.
Yep.
And so there was a huge sense of family that we got that Sean, at the time, inserted and fit himself right into, right?
Yeah. And he was looking for that sense of like normalcy out of them.
And we don't even wonder why that is at the beginning. We just go, "Oh, that's cute."
Yeah, and
How funny.
It also is like, well, Sean is already part of this family. Why aren't you two married yet? That was also kind of the
it was adorable
assumption. But I do want to like shout out that the movie handles the platonic friendship between Awkwafina and Shang-Chi so well. Awkwafina's character, Katie.
I keep wanting to go like, you mean Katie?
Yes.
Do you think that Shang-Chi and Katie are going to end up together?
No.
No.
Are you shipping Awkwafina and Simu Liu?
Not at all.
Yeah, me neither. And that's really rare. I can't think of other TV shows and movies that have done that so very well.
Like a woman and a man and a friendship situation.
They ruined it in the other show.
The other show?
The one with Jung.
Oh, in Kim's Convenience? You think they ruined that?
Gerald
and
I love him. I love him.
Janet. They were friends and then they started making out.
And you complained about that.
Yes, I did complain about that. I hated that very much.
I don't like
Yeah, that's true.
Gerald.
I was very mad when Gerald...
Shout out to Kim's Convenience, which was Simu Liu's like big break. But they do shout out that he's not Korean in the movie to like tie back to Kim's Convenience.
He goes from a decently known TV show to being in a Disney movie.
Mm-hmm.
To being in a Marvel cinematic blockbuster.
To the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
So, would you watch the movie again?
Yes. If it was HD graphic and 420 CPU.
You're so strange. Would you watch the movie again?
Yes, at home because I don't want to go places.
Absolutely. I'm actually trying to think about when I could see the movie again in the theaters safely. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, nerd.
I loved it as much as Thor Ragnarok, which is the top of my list.
Oh,
wow.
I'm a little offended.
Why are you offended about what I like?
I would need to see the movie again in order to rank it. I'm not going to put it into the hierarchy at this point.
It's supposed to be out on Disney Plus in
There is
October.
no Loki in this movie.
Fair. I would watch this movie again, absolutely. But let's say, Will and Robin, that somebody was on the fence. Like one of your friends is like, I don't know if I'm going to go see the movie. What would you say to them to convince them to go see the movie?
It's really good. You will be wowed by the fight scenes. The character development, well, what is really decent half the time. And there's a strong sense of family. There are lots of laughable moments, great storytelling, lovable characters, a lot of female characters. Yeah.
Well, it has as good jokes as the Black Widow.
Wow.
Wow.
That one had a lot of jokes.
You liked Black Widow.
So Black Widow had one character that just did all the jokes for me, and then this one had one character that did all the jokes.
The comic relief is what they usually call them.
Yes.
What would you say to somebody who was like on the fence about this?
Why are you on the fence? Everyone else has already seen it. You should go see the movie everyone else has seen. I keep trying to think about Phase 4 and how Phase 4 is going to develop. And I'm like, is Shang-Chi...
Phase 4? More like Fantastic Four.
Yeah, that too.
Where's the movie?
Shang-Chi, is he...
a major player?
he is our new character, our focal point. I'm going to hope that he's a major player.
Mm-hmm.
Is he therefore going to slot into the Captain America or Iron Man place where no matter what's happening, we're going to pull back to that? And then I wanted to say one last thing, that they did better than Black Panther did. And they didn't insert a white guy for us to view the movie through.
Yes. Except for Trevor.
Trevor was some sort of secondary sidekick that you probably could not view the movie through. But we have Trevor, played by Ben Kingsley.
It was primarily Awkwafina that we viewed the movie through. Awkwafina's character, Katie,
is our normal person who has a very North American-centric viewpoint, even though they are Asian American. Yep.
Yeah, and so a lot of Asian Americans who maybe were completely born in America don't have as strong connection to their roots, and there was an entire arc about her understanding more of her heritage through the movie, too.
There was also a whole bit about where she didn't know what to do with herself, and then she found archery and was like, yeah, I'm good at this, let's go.
And she also didn't speak good Mandarin.
Language. She didn't speak the language at all.
Yeah. She didn't grow up with it. Her family spoke it, but she didn't. Maybe she understood a little bit, but she couldn't actually communicate.
It was really well done.
Which is quite a common thing for, immigrants who have children and then don't grow up speaking the language.
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to say was related to Phase 4 is that it feels like with the characters that they're focusing on, that there's going to be more of a play on magic and Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange, Loki, Wanda,
Spider-Man.
or Scarlet Witch. And that's going to play a bigger role in who the Avengers are going forward versus what was science and technology and scientific creation.
And also, let's just hit stuff really hard.
Yeah, exactly. It was very physical,
machine
or man versus machine conflict. This is going to take on the weird twist to do with magic, and my guess is that it's going to be more psychological and character driven, because that inevitably ends up happening when you introduce the mystic into story.
When you introduce Loki into story.
Yes, also when you introduce Loki into story.
Let's hope he doesn't turn into a gender solid.
So the new
just solidifies on screen.
The new Marvel team, I think I would put Spider-Man at the front, because he's now a big character in the roles.
Yeah, but he's just a teenager, buddy. He's still in high school.
He's still learning his abilities. And the new movie tells us that the world has forgotten who Spider-Man is, even Spider-Man.
I am excited. It's the next movie to come out after Eternals.
Eternals, which also kind of deals with magical-ish powers, right? So, I don't know. It just feels like a big thing that is being pushed forward in Phase 4. Also, romance. There's way more visual display, just with Wenwu and Shang-Chi's mom. You have more romance even in this movie than all of the other movies combined.
Time to build my
even if it's done in a montage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I really got a Howard Stark feel from Wenwu.
Yes. Okay.
Yummy.
Like a version of a very powerful man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say this. Shang-Chi does not need the 10 rings in order to be a extremely powerful, amazing superhero. So that disappoints me that they felt that they needed to give him the rings to make him a superhero when he already is.
Right. Because he also had the sort of mystical martial arts, very Buddhist version of martial arts. He was already a Zhanja hero past a Wuxia hero.
They needed to have his father be I validate you. Now I'm gonna die.
Fair, yeah.
The thing I want to say is Spider-Man is just the comic relief and the protagonist for the entire moments of his movie. And that he's in high school is the best thing because all the other Marvel characters are adults.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, yeah. There are younger characters that are being introduced that we have seen.
Tommy and Billy.
We
Even
also
though they
have Ms. Marvel, who's going to be getting a show, right? And so this is the introduction of potentially the Young Avengers, which...
Canonically a fan fiction writer.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I thought she was. I thought you told me that.
I don't think I said that.
I don't know. It's a headcanon now.
I hope it's true. But they're younger, right? Like they're on the cusp of adulthood and they face those sorts of things.
Like Spider-Man in Iron Man's suit with Captain America's shield shooting webs around. That's
Yes.
a fanfic.
It's one of those toys there you can switch the different arms, and he has like a Hulk arm and a Captain America arm and an Iron Man helmet.
Oh, so he's a Skrull, a super Skrull.
You have to have Ant-Man legs so you can grow giant.
It does seem strange seeing this 2-hour movie and trying to think about how it fits and what happens next because it's so disconnected from the MCU we've had in the past and the MCU we've gotten this year, with Black Widow being a concluding epilogue, with WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki all tying down
very heavily into Endgame and what had happened with the Avengers. Yeah.
those characters from those shows. And then what we get in this one is a washing away or a readjusting of the camera to a completely different and new perspective, new group of characters. And I mentioned it earlier, very small connection to the MCU at large. It's introducing new themes. It is almost exactly like Thor and what Thor did after we saw
which
Iron
was
Man.
also all about family. Interesting. No, you're right. And I also think that although the Eternals will introduce and talk about like the problems caused by Endgame. Okay. I although the Eternals will talk about the problems created by Endgame as a result of, I don't know that they're going to focus so much on the Avengers except for in passing. I think it's going to be about establishing the Eternals mythology and the world building from that perspective, because it's a brand new concept too. What happens if you can never really die?
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing where things go from here for this camera angle.
Right.
Because we already know, and we're kind of getting set with our expectations of the preview being dropped for Spider-Man.
With the multiverse. Yeah.
And the fact that we've already seen Doctor Strange, and now we're getting the what ifs, and they're kind of exploring things too that make you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, okay, we have established characters, we have established story and plot from our TV shows that are going to get moved into the movies. This is something entirely different. And this is where I think the heart of Phase 4 is going to end up being.
Daddy,
Yeah.
So for what if, imagine if, one of the what ifs is, what if Shang-Chi never had the 10 ring?
She'd still be awesome.
Exactly. Well, we can see that in the comics.
Yes.
Anything else to add, Will?
Goodbye and pineapples.
All right, my final thoughts. Just from a mythological and folklore perspective, it's very rare for husbands to be successful in bringing their lost wives back from the dead. It rarely ever happens, and usually they die in the process. I'm thinking Orpheus, and there's many others, whereas women who are trying to find their lost husbands are more often successful in mythology and folklore. It's just a really interesting thing. And so we have a lost wife story in addition to the anger at the father type theme story.
You mean
together.
You Suck Dad story?
Exactly, yeah.
Sorry, but you made me think of P.S. I Love You. All of that.
Oh, somehow this tied to P.S. I Love You, where she was trying to find her husband in everything.
Yes, because he left her clues in a great big treasure hunt.
In that he made himself be there, not that he was actually there. All right.
Any last thoughts, Robin?
Any last thoughts?
Good movie. Recommend. 10 out of 10. Go watch it. If you haven't seen it, why haven't you seen it? Go watch it. Goodbye.
Pineapple goodbye.
Go read the comic book.
You recommend it.
Yes. Also, it deserves greater readership.
Fair.
It really does.
And for me, thank you everyone for coming out and checking out the show. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, or subscribe on your podcast app of choice if this is how you are consuming this media. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at WT Force Media. And we will be back, I guess, for the Eternals and for Spider-Man No Way Home for this sort of podcast type affair. And with that, we have come to podcast, and thus
Dormammu have come to podcast.
Pineapple.
cheers.
Two souls meet in the place
So one of the really cool things about Shang-Chi is that he was created in response to Kung Fu and Bruce Lee.
Yeah, okay.
Bruce Lee's big movie, Enter the Dragon, only became impossibly huge upon his death.
Right, yeah.
So he never really got to see any of his fame in real life. And then Kung Fu, as owned by Warner Brothers, Kung Fu was airing on TV.
Right.
Starring David Carradine, because they
like
did
the
not
legend
feel
continues, but the first one?
The first one, yes.
Yeah,
with
and then
David Carradine.
And then it came back as the legend continues later on?
Yes.
That's what I'm familiar with.
With David Carradine.
With David Carradine,
So they hired David Carradine as the actor to play in Kung Fu. He's the old man who trains the young man in Kung Fu: The Legend Continues.
Yeah.
They did not feel that they could hire an Asian actor and get support, just like they always think this in Hollywood because they're a bunch of racist assholes. So Kung Fu is airing, and Marvel, the couple of like writers at Marvel, this was like back in the days when you could just pitch anything.
Right.
Went and they said, we got to get this. We got to do this. This is huge right now. Everybody wants to read this stuff.
Right.
Let's do this. And they said, I don't know. They wanted to get the rights to Kung Fu, but who was making Kung Fu?
Warner Brothers?
And who was owned
DC.
by, I know,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So and DC even passed on their own material.
Wow. Like, I just have a follow-up question, which is, when Iron Fist came out, like, was it in it?
Later.
So it came out later after Shang-Chi, because Shang-Chi came first.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and then they worked really hard to find the name for Shang-Chi. They worked very, very hard to find the correct meaning of the words.
What does Shang-Chi mean?
I can't remember off the top of my head. It has to do with like spiritual energy and family. I want to say those are the three things that it's about. And so they started writing it. And I want to say that the success of Shang-Chi is very much similar to the success of the Filet-O-Fish at McDonald's. Like the Filet-O-Fish is oftentimes considered the benchmark by which a feature item might be kept or prolonged a bit
Ascending
longer.
energy.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Ascendant spiritual energy. Yeah.
It's dope.
Is his name. And so they worked really hard to come up with a very powerful, significant, actually generating, an Asian character. But the first few artists on the guys who came up with Shang-Chi, they actually were not the ones who began drawing Shang-Chi, and they gave Shang-Chi rounder eyes and not as Asian features. Ironically, not because they thought that would be more appreciable, but because the artist couldn't draw Shang-Chi with the double lids and the true Asian features without coming across as racist. They looked very racist as characters. So because Shang-Chi had rounder eyes and looked less Asian, they said, rather than being demanded, they said, Shang-Chi, you're half Asian and your mom is a white lady, because we didn't feel we could draw the character accurately enough and not come across as racist.
Wow. That's so interesting, because like they recognized their own inability, but there was like, I'm guessing they couldn't find an Asian artist.
No, not at the time.
Yeah.
Since then, there have been some great runs of Shang-Chi. But here's another problem for Shang-Chi that means that it's constantly not super... The runs are never very long. The stories are never very hugely impactful, even though he has been everywhere and done everything.
He seems to be like a good guest character.
Yeah.
Like he guests on a lot of other runs.
You would think, but he doesn't.
Oh.
The thing about Shang-Chi is that he doesn't sell very well, or hadn't sold very well in the past, with Asian Americans. Because if you were an Asian American and you were buying comics and you were buying Shang-Chi, that was just further drawing a relation point to your Asianness in America. And so they were not finding that Asian American young men were going out and buying Shang-Chi, because even though the character looked like you, you didn't want to be recognized for that. You wanted to be Captain America. You wanted to be Iron Man.
Interesting.
And so Shang-Chi's got this up and down, and he's been restarted several times with some delightful, amazing
Well, I hope that
storylines.
like the runs, like this movie helps bridge that gap.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because he's an incredibly amazing character because he doesn't have any immediately apparent superpowers.
Right.
His superpower is he always wins. He will win the fight.
That's interesting. I didn't know that was his superpower.
Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. Post credits, because
Yeah.
the kids wouldn't want to sit around for this.
I knew that this was going to be post credits, so literally we can talk about whatever we want, and it's just going to go on forever
and ever and ever and ever. Anyway,
Yeah.
the Wikipedia articles and a lot of the history stuff, especially about some of the authors that have come and gone who wrote for Shang-Chi, were just great. And it was just such a missed thing on DC's part not to have taken the Kung Fu character from the TV show and put him into a comic book, and that Shang-Chi really does get to be the first Asian comic book superhero.
I wanted to say that you can map the journey of Shang-Chi in the movie almost exactly to a heroine's journey, which is really, really fascinating, including even to the end, healing the wounded masculine and returning home as a more complete person. It's really, really fascinating. He has moments where he understands his missing feminine. He has moments where he connects with his past. He feels disillusioned with his own powers and what he is because he fails multiple times. And I need to think about it more. But if you're familiar with the heroine's journey, Maureen Murdoch's response to the hero's journey, it's really interesting to see it executed through a masculine lens. And he is a more sensitive character in how Simu Liu plays him in this character. And one of the things that I do want to talk about briefly is that heroines' journeys and heroes' journeys are not exclusively gendered. It's just a different interpretation based on is the transformation from without or the transformation from within. And the transformation for him is entirely within, in recognizing his own power in the inside coming from his mother.
Yeah, you can definitely look at it from a hero's journey perspective.
Oh, no, you absolutely can. There's
like
threshold guardians. They go into the other world, all of that stuff. But it's connection to his feminine side that I would say is more accentuated from a heroine's journey perspective because of the themes that are presented in the movie. Yeah. Which is cool. I think it's cool and really makes me excited. But the transformation is him finding his missing feminine, which is his mother and his aunt and the heritage by which he is missing. Yeah. And that is why it speaks more to a heroine's journey than perhaps Joseph Campbell's interpretation of standardized monomyth concepts.
Sure.
What's really important to say about it is both Campbell and Murdoch are saying the same thing, just from different lenses. He recognizes that he has the power that his mother had, which is so cool to see.
Yes.
That's all. Okay. I really loved the animation of the dragon.
Yeah, I felt like it was, again, wasted by not having a Benedict Cumberbatch
come out of nowhere.
Us.
It's like, Smaug.
And that's why. So I just felt like it was a missing step.
The Soul Stealer had a voice. I mean, his mother's voice.
Yeah. And then when the creature arrives, no voice at all.
Well, you mentioned something earlier.
Yes.
You bring it up.
I did mention something earlier. Well, like right after we saw the movie, and that I felt that the Soul Stealer did not actually leave the prison, that it felt too rushed, and there are reasons for and against. So the against is that, well, Kyle, all those little soul stealers went and fed those souls to the big soul stealer, so therefore it must be the soul stealer. But at the same time, if you're building a bigger picture of things to come and you're building against another universe or another thing that is a giant threat against all, why would you have the great beast already have arrived and not still to come?
Yeah, I totally love this. I love the idea that it's something that presents as his mother.
Yeah.
And that like it wasn't just, I like this idea that there is a bigger bad that was actually hidden inside of the cave that is obfuscated by the giant ugly soul stealer thing.
Exactly.
That is more insidious and perhaps comes in the form of his mother. I would love that. That would be like very dark goddess-esque from a folklore or mythology perspective, and would present an interesting challenge. I just don't know how that would tie to any comic book stuff because I'm just not familiar with.
It doesn't really.
Yeah.
The thing that would tie more to the comic books is that the dad's not actually dead.
Which
that
you also mentioned.
Even though the soul has been stolen, the dad is not deceased. He still exists on a level, and he is a dark, malevolent force that even from beyond the grave, he's kind of like an Emperor Palpatine in so many ways, like that he's worse.
I made a face.
I saw. He's worse dead than he is alive.
Yeah, and it would be a challenge for him to. It's like, I already like had bad father redeemed, you know, and now I have to kill him again. Like that would be very hard for Shang-Chi. So it's interesting, and I would think it would be a shame if they didn't set up future storytelling somehow within this frame, but I feel like they are leaning towards the sister being an antagonist, maybe not the antagonist, but an antagonist or anti-hero force within Shang-Chi's journey. It definitely feels that.
I just loved that she was set up with power.
Yeah.
Razor Fist reports to her, and she has assumed control, that she is not just some secondary to a brother that left her and never came back.
And he left her again. Like that was another thing, which was, I mean, he left her again, and she's like, I'm not going to do what you said. Like,
yeah, I don't know if he necessarily feels like he left her, but she's like, yeah, I'll go take care of dad's stuff. He's like, good, I've got to park some cars.
Yeah, exactly. He kind of seemed a bit himbo-y.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit. And I don't know the character of Shang-Chi.
He is not.
Well enough, but he's like innocent and cute. And that makes sense with his backstory from the movie itself. And I totally expect him to have to grow up over the course of phase 4.
Yeah,
as a character.
It's interesting that it was set like that. We only get one date and it's flashed up and it's 1996. I almost feel like that was the same date as Captain Marvel. I wonder if there's some relevancy there.
Okay, so 1996 was what happened in 1996?
That's when we see the mom and the dad
meet?
Either meet or Shang-Chi. I think that's when Shang-Chi's born, essentially, is 1996.
Right. Okay.
Because that allows us to set him up as be like, oh, he's 25.
Yeah.
Right? He's old enough.
He's old enough to, And also we can kind of backtrack and guess how old he is at different stages of the MCU.
Yeah.
And when the Mandarin was either active or not active during those period of time.
And he's set in San Francisco, which is where Ant-Man is.
Yeah, and so Shang-Chi's mom had died by the time Iron Man 1 happened.
Yep.
So that totally like, oh, he's set in San Francisco. That's true. Yeah. So we might get like a Scott Shang-Chi team up, which would be insane. I just would like
to see him in the background as they're going through in the next Ant-Man movie.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be pretty neat.
That would be cool. Or it would be cool to actually see him as like a cameo too.
I would also like to see if Shang-Chi just hopped when Ant-Man is driving a car. He rolls up to the parking.
Oh my god! And he parks the car with Shang-Chi.
Car for Ant-Man.
I love it. You're so smart.
That's hilarious.
You ran downstairs just to add that to our after Dormammu have come to podcast.
Yeah, and I would also like that Wasp is there too.
Mm.
And it would make sense that they're going under secret identity, and Shang is like, I think I know you two from somewhere.
That would be so cute.
I don't know what.
This was our after conversation, so cheers.